What is up, Suplex Rumble family? Welcome back to the channel where we break down the biggest moments in professional wrestling. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because you're about to witness one of the most satisfying revenge stories in recent memory. Today, we're talking about Seth freaking Rollins finally getting his hands on the wise man himself, Paul Heyman. This is a story of betrayal, manipulation, years of history, and one glorious moment of payback. Let's break it all down. To understand why this moment is so significant, we need to go back, way back. Because the relationship between Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman is complicated, twisted, and filled with enough betrayal to fuel a Hollywood trilogy. Let's rewind the clock. Seth Rollins, one of the most talented performers of this generation. Multiple-time world champion, Money in the Bank winner, Royal Rumble victor, WrestleMania main eventer. The man has done it all. But his journey has been intertwined with Paul Heyman's clients in ways that have shaped his entire career. Think about it, the Shield versus Heyman's clients. Seth's championship pursuits being derailed by Heyman's manipulation. Every time Seth seemed to be on the verge of cementing his legacy, there was Paul Heyman, whispering in someone's ear, pulling strings behind the scenes, orchestrating chaos that would knock Seth off his path. Paul Heyman isn't just a manager, he's a master strategist, a manipulator, an advocate who will do anything to ensure his clients succeed. And anything often meant making Seth Rollins' life absolutely miserable. Remember when Seth was building momentum, only to have Heyman's influence redirect championship opportunities elsewhere? Remember the mind games, the psychological warfare, the way Heyman could get under Seth's skin with just a few carefully chosen words? But here's what makes this story even deeper, there's a mutual respect buried underneath all the animosity. Paul Heyman has always recognized Seth Rollins' talent. He's called him one of the best in-ring performers in the world. And Seth? Seth knows exactly how dangerous and effective Heyman is at his job. This isn't just about hatred, it's about two master tacticians who have been playing chess for years, and finally, the board has been set for Seth's checkmate moment. The build-up to this revenge moment has been months in the making. Heyman's recent actions, manipulating situations, using his silver tongue to talk his way out of confrontations, always having his clients as protection, it all created this pressure cooker situation. Seth Rollins is a lot of things, but patient isn't always one of them. Watching Heyman operate with impunity, seeing him smugly smile his way through week after week, knowing he's untouchable behind his wall of protection, it was eating at Seth. You could see it in his promos, in his matches, in the way his frustration was building. And then came the catalyst, the moment that made this personal. The final straw that pushed Seth from frustrated to absolutely determined to make Heyman pay. Heyman crossed a line. Maybe it was a comment about Seth's legacy, maybe it was interference in a crucial match, maybe it was manipulation that cost Seth something important. Whatever it was, it lit a fire under the visionary that couldn't be extinguished until justice was served. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting, because getting to Paul Heyman isn't easy. The man is always protected, always surrounded, always has an exit strategy. Seth needed the perfect opportunity, and when it came, he executed it flawlessly. Let's talk about how this went down, because every detail matters. This wasn't just a random attack, this was calculated, planned, and executed with the precision you'd expect from a man who calls himself the architect. According to reports from those in attendance, the situation unfolded when Heyman's protection was compromised. Maybe his usual muscle was tied up in their own situation, maybe Seth created a diversion. The point is, for the first time in a long time, Paul Heyman found himself vulnerable. And Seth Rollins was watching, waiting, ready to strike. Picture this: Heyman, walking through the backstage area with that characteristic confidence. He's got his phone out, probably making deals, probably scheming his next move. The hallway is relatively quiet. He's comfortable, maybe even complacent. Then he hears it. Footsteps. Deliberate, purposeful footsteps. Heyman turns around, and there he is, Seth freaking Rollins. And the look on Seth's face? It's not rage, it's not fury, it's focused determination. This is a man who knows exactly what he's about to do, and nothing is going to stop him. Paul Heyman's expression changes instantly. The smugness disappears. The confidence wavers. For maybe the first time in years, Paul Heyman is scared. He tries to talk his way out of it because that's what Heyman does. The words start flowing, trying to reason with Seth, trying to manipulate the situation one more time. Seth, let's be reasonable here. We can work this out. You don't want to do this. Think about the consequences. But Seth? Seth's done listening. Seth's done being reasonable. The time for talking is over. What happens next is the culmination of years of frustration, betrayal, and anger being released in one cathartic moment. Seth grabs Heyman, not violently, but firmly. The message is clear: you're not talking your way out of this one. Heyman's eyes go wide. He's looking around frantically for help that isn't coming. For once in his career, the wise man has nowhere to run. Now, we need to be clear about something important here. Professional wrestling is about storytelling, and what made this moment perfect wasn't mindless violence. It was the justice of it all. It was seeing someone who has manipulated and schemed for years finally face consequences for his actions. The physical confrontation itself was exactly what it needed to be: emphatic, definitive, and satisfying. Seth delivered his message loud and clear. Whether it was backing Heyman into a corner, whether it was a signature move that left Heyman laying, whether it was simply the look in Seth's eyes that told Heyman, "This is for everything you've done," the moment delivered. And here's what made it perfect: Seth didn't lose control. This wasn't a mindless beatdown. This was controlled aggression, purposeful action. Seth made his point, delivered his revenge, and left Heyman with a message: your protection won't always be there, and when it's not, I'll be waiting. The image of Paul Heyman, disheveled, on the ground, his usual composure completely shattered, that's the image Seth wanted burned into everyone's memory. The wise man isn't so wise when he can't hide behind his clients. But the best part? The absolute cherry on top? As Seth walks away, he delivers one final verbal shot. Something cutting, something that hits Heyman right in his ego. Maybe it's a reference to all the times Heyman thought he was untouchable. Maybe it's a promise that this is just the beginning. Whatever it was, you could see it land even harder than the physical confrontation. Seth Rollins just proved that eventually, karma catches up to everyone. Now, let's dive into the psychology of this moment, because this is where professional wrestling becomes art. This isn't just about one guy attacking another guy, this is about character, about storytelling, about payoff that's been building for years. Seth Rollins as a character is fascinating because he's evolved so much over his career. He's been the cocky heel, the fighting champion, the Monday Night Messiah, and now the visionary. But one constant throughout all these iterations? Seth Rollins demands respect for his legacy. Every time Paul Heyman's manipulation has derailed Seth's plans, it wasn't just about wins and losses, it was about disrespecting everything Seth has built. It was about treating him like he's just another obstacle rather than one of the greatest performers of this generation. That disrespect? That's what fueled this revenge. This was personal, but it was also professional. Seth was defending his legacy, his reputation, and his place in the industry. On the flip side, let's talk about Paul Heyman. The man is a genius at his craft, there's no denying that. He's been in this business for decades, and he knows every trick, every manipulation, every way to get under someone's skin. But that genius comes with arrogance. Heyman started to believe his own hype, started to think he was truly untouchable. He forgot the golden rule of professional wrestling: what goes around, always comes around. This revenge story works so well because both characters are fully realized. Seth isn't just some angry guy seeking revenge, he's a thoughtful performer who's been calculating this moment, waiting for the right time. Heyman isn't just a cowardly manager, he's a brilliant strategist who simply got outmaneuvered by someone equally brilliant. The beauty of this storyline is that it's layered. On one level, it's satisfying as pure revenge, the bad guy gets what's coming to him. But on another level, it's about two masters of their craft engaging in psychological warfare, with Seth finally landing the decisive blow. And let's talk about the performance aspect here. Seth Rollins is incredible at conveying emotion through his facial expressions, his body language, his intensity. When he's in that mode where he's focused and determined, you believe it. There's no winking at the camera, no breaking character, he's all in. The aftermath is just as important as the moment itself. How does Heyman respond? Does he retreat, regroup, and plot his counter-move? Does he become even more dangerous because now he's embarrassed? Does he sick his clients on Seth with renewed venom? And for Seth, is this revenge complete, or is this just the opening salvo in a larger war? Did getting his hands on Heyman satisfy his need for justice, or did it awaken something even more intense? These are the questions that make professional wrestling compelling. This moment isn't just an ending, it's potentially the beginning of an even more intense chapter in this rivalry. Alright, let's talk about what you, the Suplex Rumble family, and the entire wrestling community have been saying about this moment, because the reactions have been incredible. The internet absolutely exploded when this went down. Twitter was trending, Reddit threads were going crazy, Instagram was flooded with clips and reactions. The wrestling world collectively stood up and said yes. Finally, the overwhelming sentiment? Pure satisfaction. Fans have been waiting for Paul Heyman to face consequences for years. Every time he manipulated a situation, every time he talked his way out of trouble, every smug smile, it was building to this moment. One common theme in fan reactions: this felt earned. And that's so important. This wasn't random, this wasn't out of nowhere. The story had been building, the tension had been rising, and when the payoff came, it felt completely justified. People are saying things like, Seth Rollins just delivered the most satisfying moment of the year, and watching Heyman finally get caught without protection was chef's kiss, and the visionary just proved why he's one of the best storytellers in wrestling today. There's also been fascinating discussion about the technical execution of the moment. Wrestling fans are smart, you all noticed how Seth's approach was calculated, how the timing was perfect, how every detail served the story. People are analyzing Seth's facial expressions, the way he carried himself, the way he made every movement count. That's the sign of a true professional, someone who understands that wrestling is about details, about making every moment matter. There's also been debate about what this means for the larger storylines. Does this shift the power dynamic? Does this put a target on Seth's back from Heyman's clients? Could this be the beginning of a longer, more complex storyline? The fact that there's so much discussion, so much engagement, shows how effective this moment was. Great wrestling storytelling makes people talk, makes people think, makes people invested in what happens next. And of course, the memes. Oh my gosh, the memes. Paul Heyman's shocked face has become instant meme material. The wrestling community's creativity is unmatched, and seeing all the different ways people are celebrating this moment has been absolutely hilarious and amazing. So the big question everyone's asking, where does this story go from here? Let's put on our fantasy booking hats and explore the possibilities. Scenario 1: The Heyman retaliation. Paul Heyman is not someone who takes humiliation lightly. We could see him orchestrate an even more elaborate scheme to make Seth's life miserable. Maybe he aligns multiple clients against Seth, creating a gauntlet situation. Maybe he uses his influence to cost Seth opportunities, championships, or important matches. The revenge story could reverse, with Heyman proving that while Seth got his moment, the wise man always has the last laugh. Scenario 2: The protected war. This could evolve into Seth having to face multiple challenges as Heyman's clients come after him one by one. Each match becomes a referendum on whether Seth's revenge was worth the consequences. It's Seth Rollins versus the Heyman regime, with Seth having to prove he can survive the storm he created. This allows for multiple big matches, showcases Seth's resilience, and keeps the heat on the rivalry. Scenario 3: The mutual respect. Here's an interesting twist. What if this moment of revenge actually creates a begrudging respect between Seth and Heyman? What if Heyman, having finally been caught, acknowledges Seth's brilliance and the rivalry shifts from pure antagonism to something more complex? This doesn't mean they become allies, but it could add layers to their interactions moving forward.